On July 21, 1969, NASA's Apollo 11 mission successfully landed the Eagle lunar module on the surface of the Moon. Astronauts Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin stepped out, making history as the first humans to walk on the Moon. Over 600 million people watched this incredible event live on television around the world. In the following years, there were 5 more crewed landings on the Moon, with the last one taking place in 1972. But since then, no human has set foot on the lunar surface again, and as time passed, the way people talked about the moon landings began to change. What was once seen as NASA's greatest achievement has, for some, become the subject of conspiracy theories. In fact, studies show that between 5% and 10% of Americans believe the moon landings were faked. But why would NASA and the US government want to stage something of this scale? Conspiracy theorists argue that it was all about the space race. In the late 1950s and 1960s, the United States and the Soviet Union were competing to prove their technological superiority. The Soviets had shocked the world in 1961 when Yuri Gagarin became the first human to orbit the Earth. In response, President John F. Kennedy announced an ambitious goal. America would land a man on the moon before the end of the decade. But skeptics claimed that as the deadline approached, the US realized it might not succeed in time. So instead, they supposedly hired film directors to create staged footage, giving the illusion that America had beaten the Soviets to the moon. To back up their claims, conspiracy theorists often point to 4 main arguments. 1. Where are the stars? Moon landing photos show a black sky with no stars visible. To skeptics, this looks like a studio set where the stars were forgotten. The truth? The cameras were set to capture the bright lunar surface, which made faint starlight impossible to detect. The same thing happens on Earth when you photograph something brightly lit at night. Fainter details simply don't appear. 2. The flag is waving. When Buzz Aldrin planted the US flag, it appeared to flutter. But how could it wave in the vacuum of space? The answer is that in the absence of air resistance, any movement lasts much longer. The flag looked like it was fluttering, but in reality it was just swaying from the force of being planted. 3. Multiple shadows. Some photos show shadows going in different directions, which conspiracy theorists say proves the use of studio lights. In reality, shadows on uneven terrain can appear distorted or angled. The moon's surface isn't flat, and slopes can create the illusion of multiple light sources. Even Mythbusters recreated this effect perfectly. 4. Deadly radiation. Skeptics argue that astronauts would have been killed passing through the Van Allen radiation belts. Yes, space radiation is dangerous, but the Apollo spacecraft passed through the belts in just over an hour. The short exposure time combined with the spacecraft's shielding kept the astronauts safe. And that's just the start. The evidence supporting the moon landings is overwhelming. Over 400,000 people worked on the Apollo program. It's nearly impossible that such a massive secret could be kept for decades. The Soviet Union, America's rival, tracked every mission. If it had been a hoax, they would have been the first to expose it. Apollo astronauts brought back genuine lunar rocks, which have been studied by independent scientists worldwide and confirmed to be unlike anything found on Earth. In 2009, NASA's Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter photographed the Apollo landing sites, showing the lunar modules and even the astronauts' tracks. Other countries have since taken similar photos. When you put it all together, the idea of faking the moon landings is far less believable than the truth, that humans actually went there. Skepticism can be healthy, but denying one of humanity's greatest achievements ignores decades of science, engineering, and sacrifice. The Apollo missions proved what once seemed impossible. Humans walked on the moon.